This video right now is about writing equations of graphs that you already have. So we are going to focus on sine and cosine graphs only. This is off of your more graphs worksheet. We're going to do number 8 and number 11. So the first thing you need to do is when you look at it, you want to first figure out which graph you actually see. So the first thing I see is a sine curve. Okay, so the first equation I'm going to write is going to be about my sine graph. And then you need to pick out all the important pieces. So parts. Okay. So our parts that we need are the amplitude, we need the period, we need the horizontal shift, and we need the vertical shift. Okay? And we're doing that all by looking at the sine curve. So the sine curve that I'm seeing is starting right here at pi over 6. Okay? So our parts, the amplitude. So we can see right here that we have this balance line. And so your amplitude is what's going to be above or below that. So that's your amplitude, capital or lowercase, really doesn't matter, depends on your book. Make it clear though. There's your A. So that is a length of 2, so our amplitude is going to be 2. Our period, okay, so our period is from the beginning to the end, the length of a full cycle. So the way that you do that is you take your end minus your beginning, and that's going to tell you how long your period is. So if we're ending at 5 pi over 6, and we're starting at pi over 6, then that gives us 4 pi over 6 for our period. Well, we always want to put it into reduced form, so this is going to reduce to 2 pi over 3. Okay. Now, in our form of our equation, we don't actually use 2 pi over 3. Remember, the form of the equation we're going to use is y equals a sine b parentheses x minus h plus k. So your a is going to be your amplitude. Your b is what we use in the period. Remember, the period, equals 2 pi over b. So we can look at this pretty easily and see that since our numerators match, they're both 2 pi, then our denominators have to match. So our b must be 3. So I'll put right here, so b equals 3. Okay, because that's what we're going to actually use. And then the h, this is going to be the actual horizontal shift, the hs. And then the k, that is your vertical shift. Ooh, sorry, my pen doesn't want to work over there. I'm outside the bounds, I guess. So now that we have our amplitude and our period and we figured out our b, now let's go ahead and look at that horizontal and vertical shift. So typically a sine curve is going to be on our x-axis starting at our origin, and then we go through the motions. Well, we're not at our origin anymore. We have moved off the origin from here over to here. So we moved right pi over 6. Okay? So our horizontal shift is right pi over 6. So what I could do is I could use that right away. And I could come down here and start writing my equation. And I know that in the parentheses then, I'm going to have x minus pi over 6. Because remember, inside here is always the opposite of what you really expect. Because we had to originally take that and set it equal to 0. Okay, so that's a right pi over 6. So in the parentheses is x minus pi over 6. And then our vertical shift, well, since we are on the x-axis right here for our balance line, it didn't move. So our vertical shift is actually 0. So that means over here, we would add 0. So it looks like a 1, and I apologize. I will change that so that it doesn't look like a 1. And we'll do plus 0. There we go. Okay, so if we take the rest of this and include our amplitude right here and our period, which we actually are going to use the b equals 3, then we'll have 2 sine 3, and then times the x minus 6. Now always double check your sign on your amplitude. You want to see whether or not it should be positive or negative. And since this does start by going up, we're starting on that positive hump, that up hump, this is going to be a positive sine curve, okay, when we think about where we're starting. So our equation, our final equation, is going to be y equals 2 sine 3 times x minus pi over 6. Since we have no k, I'm not going to write a k in my final answer. Okay. Now, I'm actually going to use the same equation, and I'm going to come up with our cosine equation. Okay? And really, the only difference between the sine and the cosine is going to be where you begin. Where you begin. So remember, a cosine equation would start at the maximum or minimum. So if you think about starting at a maximum or minimum, I have two choices. I can start right here at a max, and I can do my cosine equation that way, and then that would give me a positive cosine curve. Or I could go and I could back this up, and I could start right here, at which case I would have a minimum, so that would have to be a negative cosine equation. Okay? Either way is fine. I'll write both. Okay, so the only difference is going to be that horizontal shift. So if you're going to start up here at the max, then that means your horizontal shift is going to be right pi over 3. Okay, right pi over 3. So instead of this minus pi over 6, I would actually just make that a minus pi over 3. So y equals 2 cosine 3 times x minus pi over 3. There we go. Okay, that's one form we could use. If we started down here at the minimum, I have no horizontal shift, and it has to be a negative a value in the very front. So this would be y equals negative 2 cosine of 3x. Either of those is correct and would be perfectly acceptable for your answer. So you have to give me one sine equation though and one cosine equation. Okay? So this one didn't have a vertical shift, so let's actually switch it over to one that does. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. So this is number 11 on your worksheet. Okay, when I first look at this, I see a cosine graph to start with. So let's see, I'll use red. So right here, this would be the start of a positive cosine curve, is what I see. And so I need to find all of the same stuff. Maybe I'll start over here on the left. So the absolute value of A, which I guess you need to figure out where the heck that balance line is before you can figure out where the absolute value of A is. Okay, so you can see right here, the whole thing, we're going from 0 down to negative 6. Well, what would be halfway between 0 and negative 6? Halfway between 0 and negative 6 would be negative 3. So this is actually our balance line and also our K. All right, that would be our K value or our vertical shift. So if I write all this out, P, so then we'll have to figure out B, horizontal shift, and vertical shift. Okay, our vertical shift is going to be down 3, which means we're at negative 3 for K. Now since we know that, then here is our actual amplitude. So from 0 down to negative 3, we get 3 for our amplitude. Remember, amplitude has to be positive. Okay. All right, now we can figure out the period. So remember, do where you end minus where you begin. Okay. So our period is going to be 3 pi over 4 minus negative pi over 4. You take the actual spot, so negative pi over 4. So this would be plus plus, that gives you 4 pi over 4, which is simply pi. Okay, ooh, now we have something else that happened here. So we don't have this pretty 2 pi over something thing going on, so we're going to have to figure out from this what our B value is. So we take the equation, period equals 2 pi over B, and we have to plug in and solve it. Okay, we know the P, that's pi. So pi equals 2 pi over b. Well, so if you undo this by cross multiplying, hopefully you remember that what happens is these two actually just switch spots. So this is b equals 2 pi over pi, which means your b has to be 2. 2. Okay, so b equals 2. Now that's left is that horizontal shift, so we need to go to the left. We normally would be at the y-axis right here, but we're moving it to the left, pi over 4, sorry, left pi over 4. Okay. So then that tells us what to put in parentheses. So since it's left pi over 4, remember we're going to change that sign since we would normally set it equal to 0. So that means in the parentheses we're going to have x plus pi over 4. So if you're on the negative side, you're going to make your symbol inside of here a plus. If you're over here on the positive side somewhere, then you're going to make that inside the parentheses a minus. Okay? So now we have everything we need to write the equation, and we will just plug into that form that I wrote a few minutes ago. So our format is y equals a cosine or sine b x minus h plus k. They use exactly the same equation, okay? Except you just change the sign to a cosine and vice versa. So, since we are starting here at negative pi over 4, it's going to be a positive cosine curve. So I'm going to take this 3, and it's going to be y equals positive 3 cosine. We figured out the b value had to be 2. So 2, parentheses. We figured out our set of parentheses has to be x plus pi over 4. And then we also figured out that our vertical shift right here, we went down 3, so we're going to put a minus 3 on the back. And that is the equation for cosine. Now, for sine, again, you get some choice, okay? Probably the best thing to do would be start right here. Otherwise, you're having to back way up over here, and we've already got a lot of writing there. The nice thing about using this point is you're already on the y-axis. So if I kind of trace that, oh, I started down first, so does that mean I'm going to have a positive a or a negative a? Hopefully you said negative. So negative sine curve, okay? And now we have a new horizontal shift, which actually is non-existent. So this is going to be easy to write. It's a negative cosine curve, so we need a negative 3 in the front. Negative sine curve. So negative sine 2 x, because there is no horizontal shift. We're right there on that y-axis where we start out. But we do have a vertical shift. We went down 3. So here would be the equation in sine form. Okay, I hope this helps you guys out as a reference. Hopefully you get these right on your worksheets. If you have questions, let me know. Thank you.